What's going on, everybody? This is Walt Blackman, your state representative representing Legislative District 7. And I hope everybody had a great week. As you know, yesterday was the primary date. Everybody should have went out and voted. I hope you did. Today, we're going to be talking about what is next in our, I would say, saga of our month-long elections. We're going to be talking about that, and we are going to be talking about the Constitution. Imagine that. Maybe some of the folks who are talking about the Constitution should actually read it. And a lot of times they don't. What they'll do is they will get a meme or they will read something off of Facebook or Twitter or they'll read a comment, so on and so forth. And then everybody is a constitutional scholar. And that is something that is really out of, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. I was listening on the radio this morning, and I will tell you, I heard the craziest thing on the radio. I'm not going to say the radio show. I'm not going to say the person that actually said it. I just want to talk about a statute that's in the Arizona statute. It's ARS, Arizona Revised Statute. And this person was a candidate. This person was an actual candidate. I'm not going to say what race, but this person was an actual candidate. And it was really, it was interesting to say the least. Now, I'm not bagging on anybody because if I were, I would say some names. I'm not bagging on anybody. However, if you're going to get on the radio, please, and definitely if you're going to talk about if something is constitutional or unconstitutional, make sure you have actually read the Constitution. And if you would have read the Constitution, the Arizona Constitution, you would have known.
You're so dumb. You are really dumb.
It's not in the Arizona Constitution. It is a statute. It's a statute. So what's the difference between a statute and something that is in the Constitution? You can't take it out of the Constitution. Statute is actually written by, I don't know, the legislature. So I don't mean to be, crazy about that, but I want to talk about really quickly this past year or this past session. One of our representatives in LD7, he resigned and he took another position. And good for him. He's doing a great job in that position. He is the county recorder. Just for being in there in 2 months, and he's ran a huge primary election. He did great, and we're proud of him. Want to give it up to my good buddy, brother from another mother, Dave Marshall. He really did a great job on that past election. However, when he resigned, typically a replacement has to be named to that seat, to the legislative seat that is vacant. Now, statute says, and I'll put the statute up there, ARS 411202. It's vacancies in the legislature, precinct committeeman, and the appointed definition. Now I'm going to read this. Now, the key requirement is that the replacement must come from the same legislative district. And I think that's probably where they stopped. It said, oh, yes, it's me. But if you would have kept reading, it says the same county and the same political party. Let me read that again for you. A replacement must come from the same legislative district and the same county. And obviously the same party. Now, Dave Marshall lives in Navajo County. So when he resigned, Navajo County, according to the statute, says that the replacement has to come from Navajo County, not another county, not Maricopa, not Pinal, not Apache County. where that candidate, where that elected official resides, where they came from, where they registered with the Secretary of State to say where they are running. Now, why isn't this unconstitutional? First of all, it hasn't been heard in the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court says states are entitled to run their own elections. And states are allowed to do those things that is not covered in the Constitution. Imagine that. That is the 10th Amendment, everybody. You win the prize. Now, why do I bring that up? This is exactly what I was talking about last week. We get bad information from folks that are sitting on a platform, and then what they do is they spew something that is totally, totally wrong, inaccurate. It's just insane. Now, if you say it on your own, I got it. You can say it on your own. However, if you say it on the radio and you want to be elected, come on. Come on. And I'm not going to say any names. I'm not going to do that. However, I would suggest that the next time you want to say something that's unconstitutional or is constitutional, particularly in this case, make sure you read that revised statute of 41-1202. And it is actually titled Vacancy in the Legislature. Make sure you read it. Okay. Now, who makes the appointment? It depends on the number of elected precinct committeemen, PC, in the district. So if the party has at least 30 elected PCs in the affected legislative district and county, says it again, the PC committeemen, the PC, nominate 3 qualified electors. In this case, 3 were nominated. 3 were nominated. The County Board of Supervisors, says again, in the county where the legislator comes from, appoints one of the 3, which we saw what happened, and that was former Senator, Representative, former Senator Representative Sylvia Allen. She was appointed, she was nominated, and she was appointed. Now, here's the deal. If you don't live in the county, based on the statute, and I've already said it, if you don't live in the county, you can't come to the county that the person lives in and expect to be appointed. Or you can come and watch the proceedings. You can come and observe the appointment process and the nomination. You can do that. But you can't just roll up into somebody else's county and say, hey, put me in. It is unconstitutional if you don't. That is not how that goes. All right. And the reason that I want to say that is because we get a lot of this. And this is exactly what I am talking about. Bad information being told to the public without that person doing their due diligence. And just do us all a favor. And this isn't to the person. And again, I'm not going to say your name, but you know who you are if you're watching. Do us all a favor and read the Constitution or read the statutes before you say anything, because guess what? If you decide to run for office again, because it's on tape, and if I heard it, I know whoever heard it. If you decide to run for office again, guess what's going to come up? How can you be an elected official and you do not understand the appointment process when a legislator resigns from office? That I can't wait to hear the excuse on that. So let's just make sure that we are doing the right thing and we're reading the Constitution. We're going to be talking about the elections tonight, what actually happened. I'm going to be talking about some numbers. Again, if you want to call in, please, you are more than welcome to do that. We need you. We want you to do that. We want you to do that. And all you got to do is call in to 435-383-8118. You can do that, or all you need to do is you can go to, if you hear people in the background, that's my nephew. And love to have him over here. You can go to that number, or what you can do is you can go to my Facebook, you can go to my X, you can go to my YouTube, or you can go to my website, and you can send a question in if you like. Now, we're just starting, and we've got some folks that are coming up, and I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be able to come up and talk about or ask whatever questions they want to ask, and we'll answer those questions for you. And we'll make sure if we don't know the answers, I'm definitely not going to say something that I don't know. Okay. I'll tell you, I don't know, and I will talk to you later. Also, if you want to come up on the big screen, you can do that. All you got to do is follow that link, and that link will bring you right here. And let me go ahead and put it on the screen for you. All you got to do is follow the link, and that link will come up on the screen. It'll go into the chat box, similar as you see right there. It's on the chat box in my Facebook and also my YouTube. That's all you got to do is come up and do that. And we're going to keep going until we get some folks. Last week, and it was so awesome, I think we had about 44 people just on this one right here, and then on the Facebook and the Twitter and the YouTube, we had some other folks on there, and it was really great conversations. And we are going to make sure that we get folks on here so they can ask questions, and they are able to just be part of the conversation. Just be part of the conversation. Okay, again, I'm Walt Blackman, and we are going to, again, let's go ahead and talk about the elections. So, yesterday was the primary. So it was the last day for you to go and vote in the primary. Now, don't forget, we have a general coming up in November. Now, after this primary, we have all your nominees that are moving on to the next round. Is that what you have to vote for? You don't have to. However, it's essential that you vote for them. We'll get into that a little later, but I want to talk about the statewide turnout and where you can go find where your candidate, what they did, how they won, and how they actually did in different counties. And so you get the straight scoop of what your folks did. And now, statewide turnout, according to the Arizona Secretary of State's office, there were 4.3 million registered voters. Now, the ballots that were cast were 1 million, a little over 1 million, and the turnout was actually about 25%. Now, what that really means is 1 in 4 of the registered voters participating in the primary, which is typical in a non-presidential primary, showed up to vote. Now, we'll take up my district, LD7, and we'll use that as an example of what the numbers are. And again, if you can, let me put the source in here, because I just talked to folks about, making sure that you are not just saying things, bumping your gums. I used to have a first sergeant who say that, stop bumping your gums. Don't want to just bump your gums on some of this. I put the source up there. Now let's talk about my county. So legislative district 7 for our House races and our Senate races. We had 4 counties that were primary voting, that were voting in the primary for their House members. So we have Coconino County, Gila County, Navajo County, and Pinal County. The numbers, I'll show you where you can get the vote count and all that. However, when we are talking about the turnout in some of these legislative races, the not the board of supervisors, however, the Arizona Secretary of State's office can really break that down as they broke down the statewide numbers. And it's important for you to be able to look at that and understand. So, for example, um, you'll have the counties. I talked about the counties, and it'll have the number of folks that actually came out to vote, the number of votes that the candidate had from that particular county, and then you can kind of track and see how well or how bad that candidate did in that particular county. You can also break this down to precincts. So statewide, let's talk about the political environment statewide. Okay, now um, for the governor's office, we know that Congressman Andy Biggs won his primary. He had a high-profile primary. It was in the news, also national news. He was Trumped. He was endorsed by President Trump, and he performed extraordinary well in that race, in the governor's primary race. And as we know, he won. He won that, and I'll bring his numbers up here in a minute. But he did extremely well, and he actually won by 74%. He was running against Mr. Congressman David Schweiker, and both great individuals, lawmakers, and Mr. Biggs actually won that race. Now, when we look towards November, and as you know, the general is in November, we have to continue to motivate our party. And again, I'm going to answer some questions as you get them. We have to motivate the base. When we're coming off of 25%, actually it's 25.05% of turnout in the primary. And we have to push those numbers up. And why do we have to push those numbers up? Because typically in a non-presidential election year, and this is a midterm, we get lower numbers because some folks only come out and vote during the presidential elections. And a lot of folks will do that because they're just like, nah, I don't feel like voting. I don't feel like doing that. Okay. So in 2022, in a general election, there were 2.5 million ballots that were cast, and we had a turnout of 62%. That's that's statewide. Okay. In 2024, we had 3.4 million, 78% turnout. And then this past primary, a little over 1 million, 25.5 in the primary. So we're expecting, based on the numbers that we're talking about, the general elections, we're expecting more folks to turn out. Now, those numbers aren't just numbers for the Republican Party. They are numbers collectively. We're talking about all the parties that can actually cast a ballot. So we're talking about independents, moderates, independents, Democrats, Green Power Party. I think they got some new party out there. That's what we're talking about. And so each party, they're going to be trying to motivate their base to try to get more people out to vote because they're seeing the same numbers that we are seeing. Okay. And because of that, this is important. Now, you always hear this is the most important election of the year. You hear that all the time. I've even said that sometimes. However, I will tell you this. As I said, a little over 1 million people came out and voted. We had a 78% ballot cast. You know what that really means? 3.2 registered voters did not get out and vote. 3.2 million. 3.2 million voters in Arizona did not get out and vote. Why is that? Why is that when we have 4.3 million registered voters, but only 1.1 million of them came out and 3.2 did not come out and vote? Now, it could be a lot of reasons. Somebody, you could have been sick, you could have, I don't know, out of town, what have you. But not every person in that 3.2 million, I don't think you were sick. Okay. But that's okay because we got the general. We can come out. You can come out and vote. And the reason why I talk about this is because we need to get out and vote. Okay. Now, when we're talking about 2026's past primary election, again, we had 4.3 million people that were registered. A little over 1 million ballots were cast. Voter turnout was 25%. And the registered Republicans was 1.5 million. Registered Democrats, 1.2 million. So, and we got the independent left, 1.57 million. Do I need to say that again? Republicans 1.5, Democrats 1.2, and independent voters 1.57. Republicans 1.52. And then we had a lot of folks that didn't get out and vote. Now, I was talking to some folks today. I was at a campaign event. We have a rodeo, and it's Pioneer Days in Snowflake, Arizona. If you don't know about Pioneer Days, you need to come up here, enjoy it, bring your family, get it out of the heat and get in the cool. However, I was talking to this couple. I have a table out there, and they made it very clear that if we want to actually hold on to our republic here in Arizona, hold on to the House and the Senate, then we need to get out and vote. We can't complain about the form of government that we are under the Hobbs administration. However, we don't get out and vote. And we are a 1.5, 1.2, and then 1.5. And that 1.5, when we're talking about other independent and minor parties, guess what? You know where they lie at? They are center right or center left. That's where they're at. Center right and center left. That's my daughter back there. What do you want? No. Okay. All right. All right, boy. Make me lose my mind. No, because you need to go put a shirt on. Bye-bye. Don't walk out of the house.
I will. I have my shirt.
All right.
Mom said this was cute.
I will come and get you wherever you're at. That's real life live. Okay. Your family doesn't stop. You don't stop being a dad or a parent when you're doing live. You better put that shirt on. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, y'all. So when we have 1.5 that are out there, they're outstanding, center right and center left, Republicans, we had better step up our game. We need to step up our game. We cannot complain about an outcome of an election if we do not step up our game. And that's what we need to do. Now, what do those numbers mean? Well, 1.78 Arizona's voted in the primary, 3.2 did not vote. 75% of registered voters stayed home during the primary. 75%. Let me say that again. 75% stayed home. These are registered voters. These folks are registered. They went down, they signed their paper, they have their voting record, their card, and then they stayed home. 75% stayed home. Now that's overall. That's just not Republicans. That is overall. Now imagine, let's take that split of the 75. Well, I've already broke down those numbers for you. You take that split, all the Democrats need is 75% more people to come out and vote if our numbers don't change as Republicans. Okay? The math is simple. You know, we're talking about flood the zone. But we got 75% of the people that didn't come out and vote. There's a fraction of those folks that are Republican that stayed home of the 75%. And a lot of people didn't get out and vote. And that's not cool. That's not cool to do. So in the Arizona general elections, and this is history, and this is what history suggests when we're talking about Arizona general elections, and it consistently draws more voters in the general. Now, typically, even in the midterms, folks will come out and vote in the general elections. Now, let me tell you the kind of the problem of that. Because if we don't get out and vote in the primary, you might get somebody that you don't want in the general. Or you might put somebody in there that can't win the general. Double-edged sword. So in 2022 primary, again, 35%. 2022 general, 63% came out for the general. 2024 was a presidential general. 78% came out to vote. And this year in the primary, again, 25% voted. And we had 78% that did not come out and vote. Why am I telling you all this? Because we have a low turnout. Now, the expected turnout for this general election should be anywhere between in the middle ground should be about 65%. A low turnout is going to be 60 and a high turnout is going to be 70%. Now, what does that mean to you? That means we can't say this guy got it, this girl's got it, and then nobody's got it, and nobody shows up to the poll. We can't do that. We got to get out there and we have to vote. We have to vote. Now, what does this translate to you? When I say the 60, 65, 75. So what this translates to do. So 60% turnout actually means 2.5 million are expected to come out in 2026 general. That's a low turnout. In a mid turnout, we're talking about 2.8 million, 65%. And in the 70%, we're talking about 3 million should be coming out to vote. However, we factor that 75% in there. Guess what? This is an approximate number, assuming that everybody's going to come out and vote. Registered voters at least. Registered voters at least. Now, for my district, let's talk about my district. LD7, again, Navajo County, Gila County, Pinal County, and Coconino County. And when we're talking about Pinal County, we're not talking about all of Pinal County. We're talking about some of the areas, northern areas of the Pinal County. Now, last night, after they counted all the votes in the primary vote, there was 42,000, little over 42,000 votes were cast. Okay, now, in the general, remember I told you that 60, 65, 70, the low turnout, what they are expecting in the general election in LD7 is 72,000. That's a low turnout. What's expected is 80,000. Now, these are registered voters in LD7. LD7, I told you, Coconino County, Pinal County, Gila County, and Navajo County. That's expected. Now, we're doing really good if we get up to 85,000. And that's at 75% that I was talking about. And what that means is between 35 and 42,000 additional voters could come out and participate in the November elections. Why is that important? We got two people on the ballot for the general. We got Congressman Andy Biggs, and we have the current governor, Katie Hobbs. Now, we can't sit around after the election and be upset about what the executive is doing, veto on some really good conservative structured bills, if only 75% or actually if 75% of the people stay home. We can't do that. Now, who are some of those additional voters that we need to be concentrating, we need to be knocking on the doors? So some of those are independents who skip the primaries. There's a reason why they did that. Less frequent Republican voters. The same with Democrats. Less frequent Democrats, and newly registered voters and voters mobilized by statewide races. So that's a lot. That's a big group right there of folks that are expected to come out. And I told you where a lot of the independents are: center right and center left. And if you don't know what center right and center left is, we're talking in the middle. They are either weak Republicans or they are weak Democrats. And based on a platform and based on what the governors are talking about, and we're talking down ballot, when we're talking about in the primary midterm election, down ballot is usually who they vote for. In the general, folks, Republicans vote for Republicans, Democrats vote for Democrats. And guess what, folks? Those independent voters can go either way. And I've already told you the numbers on the independent voters: 1.57. 1.57 for those independents and others. They can go either way. And they're watching what both parties are doing. And a lot of folks in independent parties, guess what? They are sick and tired of the fighting. So we don't know what they are going to do in this election cycle. And I'll get to the questions in a minute. But we don't know what they're going to do. So if we are not passing good policy and we are making government bigger, if we are, what did Reagan say? Government is not the answer. Government is the problem. It is the problem. And we're doing that. We are forcing more government onto voters, the electorate. If we're doing that, then guess what? We have a problem. And if we have a group of voters within this group, these independents, voters and others and non-party, and if they are center left, they may want some of those programs that the left offers. They may want bigger government. They may want overreach. They may want so on and so forth. They may want higher taxes. But then you got the center right folks that are saying, yeah, you know what? I want low taxes. I want free enterprise. I want the government out of my life. But if we're not going to go to the top of that ticket, and I don't mean the presidential ticket, I mean the governor's ticket, because that's the main votes, or that's the main standard point that we are going to see. It's easy to figure out where you're going to vote. And it's also easy to figure out who may have the advantage and who may not have the advantage on this. Now, I want to talk about something that some folks may not know of what's going on this year. This year is the first time in Arizona history that we will have a lieutenant governor. Now, what does that mean? Well, first of all, right now, the Secretary of State is the next office that is in line. If something happens to the governor, it's the Secretary of State who steps up in the line of succession. However, because of a proposition that was passed some time ago, now it would be a lieutenant governor that will assume that position of authority, if you will, in the executive if something happens to the governor. God forbid. Don't want anything to happen to the governor. However, the governor chooses his or her running mate, just like in the presidential elections. The governor's staff and the governor will say, I want this person to be my running mate. That person is their running mate through the general campaign. Now, since this is a first, we really don't know how they're going to do it. Now, a lot of times, and we look at the presidential election, after the primary, the president, the nominee for the general election rolls out their vice president. It's kept a secret until they're rolled out. We don't know what's going to happen in this one. The governor may, or the nominee for the governor's seat may hold off on that announcement or they may pick it as early as next week. We don't know how that's going to work out. However, we do know there will be a lieutenant governor. Now, that's a double-edged sword. Because if that governor needs to get votes that they cannot usually get because of whatever stance or ideology they happen to be sitting at, they are going to go get someone to fill that gap. And if they fill that gap with the ideology of the middle, center right or center left, guess what? You are going to get a lieutenant governor that fills the spot that we are missing. That's what's going to happen. Two things on that. First of all, it's crystal clear, it should be crystal clear about how important it is for these elections, particularly now. And we need to watch who they pick as a lieutenant governor. There's a couple things they need to take into account. Okay, we have two candidates, one male, one female, one from the city, or they're both from the city. Okay, they are going to have to probably pick the opposite. Okay, so we may see somebody come from rural. Okay, on Katie Hobbs' side, we may see someone come from the rural areas. They may be a man that fits that profile. Okay, or she may pick a woman. You know, that's her deal. And on our side, the nominee will have to do something similar. Now, they don't have to do that. They do not have to actually fall in line with the political, historical picks of vice president. They can pick whoever they want. However, that second pick will determine who wins that election. It determines that. Because the person has to be able to fit in that box where those independent voters don't have a place to go. There are a lot of Republicans that feel like that they don't have a party anymore. Ronald Reagan said when he was a Democrat, he said that he didn't leave the Democrat Party. The party left him, thus making him a Republican and one of the best presidents that in my lifetime that when I was old enough to understand politics. There we go. And who did he pick for his vice president? George Bush Sr. Because George Bush filled that gap. Let's talk about 1960 presidential election. In 1960, John F. Kennedy became the Democrat nominee. He was from the Northeast, if you know your history. He had to get someone in the South to cover those Dixiecrats. And who did he get? LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson. He was actually covered the whole South, not just Texas, where he came from, but the whole South, because he was what? The majority leader in the United States Congress. He started as the whip, he went to majority leader. And he pulled the strings to a lot of southern states, a lot of southern legislators. So Kennedy said, hey, you know what? I don't like them, but guess what? I better get them so I can get those votes in the South. That's how it works, folks. Kennedy won. He beat out Nixon. Think about the same method can be used or will be used if we're talking about political strategy, will be used in this upcoming general election with the governor's race. Again, they can pick anybody they want to pick, but I guarantee you, well, I would hope there is someone in one of those staffs that said they're looking at a whiteboard and they've got all their data and they're saying, okay, we don't want this gal. We don't want that guy. We want this lady. We don't want this person, because it's what that nominee, that second person on the ballot, can bring to the ballot. They are going to get someone who can bring votes to their campaign. They may not have to like them. Their ideology may be different, but they're going to get someone who can pick up those votes for them. So we got to be looking out for that. When we're talking about, again, this primary, I've talked about what's going to happen as a lieutenant governor for Republicans. 1.5 registered voters, 35% of registration. Democrats, 1.2, 28%. Okay. The other, again, I can't stress this enough. 1.4 registered voters in the primary, and guess they had 34.5 turnout. 34.5. You do the math, you look at the battleground, if you will. And if you're a governor, you're running for governor. I'm not talking about the two nominees that are running right here. But if you're running for governor, you're looking at the same numbers that I'm looking at. These are new numbers that just came out this within the last 24 hours. You're looking at those numbers. And the number that I would be looking at is at 1.4, 34%. Other and independents. Now we got this new party out there, no labels. Then we got the Libertarians, and then we have the Green Party. Okay. No labels. They take up 46,000, 1.7. Then we have the Libertarians, 30,000, so on and so forth. The Green Party, 5,000, 0.12. So if you haven't got what I'm talking about, this is down the middle. And I know that, I'm one of those persons that look at the numbers, and we need to make sure we do look at the numbers. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to, hey everybody, it's good to see you. Remember, before I go on to the next one, remember, if you want to call in, all you got to do is call 435-383-8118, or you can just click on the link and it's in the comments, or you can just go to my Facebook, my Twitter, or my YouTube channel, and you can get that link from there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what last night looked like. Okay, I think they're still counting some votes. I am not entirely sure. However, we're going to go and look at what last night looked like. I don't have my glasses, so I have to I got to squint. Now, if we look at last night's numbers, we were just talking about Congressman Biggs. He had a great win last night, came out strong, finished strong at 74%. Again, if you want to find this, and I reference it all the time because I just talked about people saying things without even knowing it. The results, results.arizona.vote. Okay. You can go to there. And some of y'all probably already know this. Okay. So Congressman Big had a great showing last night. We see Katie Hobbs. She got 100%. The reason why she got 100% is because no one else was on the ticket. And if you notice, all of the executive branches, those folks that are running, there was one person running. The Democrats put up one person. Not two, but one. Okay. Same with the Green Party. 100%. When you see 100%, that means there was only one person running. Now, the other group, I guess, is the no labels group. They had two people running. Okay. And they had to split that vote. Now let's look at the Secretary of State's office. Alex Cullinan, who is in the legislature right now, won at a 59.8. And then my good friend Gina Sabota, she didn't turn out, she didn't do so well. However, I like her, hands down. I like her. Okay. She was the AZ chair, AZ GOP chair. I think she did a great job there. And I hope she stays in the fight. Secretary of State, what do we got? Adrian Fontes, 100%. 100%. Same as you go down. Attorney General, Warren Peterson, who is the actual, right now, he's president of the Senate, running against Rodney Glassman. Peterson actually, good showing, really good showing. Let's go to the Democrats. Attorney General, 100%. Elijah Norton for treasurer. He split those votes with Catherine Haley. They are both good candidates. And then the Democrat Secretary of State, 100%. Why do you think that is happening, folks? In these three major positions, governor, secretary of state, and the attorney general's office, because they are gunning for those positions. I'm not saying that the state treasurer is any less important, because it is. It handles that position. The person there handles our dollars, our revenue, our stores, our revenue. However, let's look at state treasurer again. For the Democrats, 100%, one person running. Do you see a trend here? Do you see a trend? Now, sometimes you'll see red 100%. That's not strategy, ladies and gentlemen. What that is that nobody else wanted to run on the Republican side. So for the state mine inspector, that's one of those deals. Okay. He had no primary and don't have a general this time with another Democrat, but we'll see. We'll see. Corporation Commission, same thing. We had an unexpected loss right there. Nick Myers, he was on the Corpcom. He was going into his second term. He did 4 going into his second term. And Ralph Heath, who is also a state representative, beat him 32.9%. So you can go down the line and see this. Okay. Now I want to show you all something. Let's look at this. You can see vote type, you can see by county, and you can see the summary. This is the summary. Let's look at by county. That's where you see where the votes came from. Now let's look at where the majority of those votes come from. We're looking at Maricopa. We're looking at Pinal is actually Republican, but Maricopa, Coconino, Santa Cruz, parts of Pima. And look at these numbers. Okay, let's look at Maricopa. She got 250,000 votes. Okay, she won that. 250,000 votes. Okay, those people are going to come out for the general. That's just Maricopa. Now let's look at the Republican side. Ralph Heap, Maricopa County, 177,000. That gives you an indication of where those general votes are going to come from. Again, Maricopa County, 215. Maricopa County for Ralph Heap, 177. For Nick Myers, 158. For Kevin Thompson, 183. Let's look at the governor's seat. Mr. Biggs, Congressman Biggs. I like to call him Biggie Smalls. Biggie Smalls. Congressman Biggs, we're talking about Maricopa, 251. which is a good showing to me. I mean, that's a good showing. Okay. That's a pretty good showing. All right. These are the Republicans. Let's go to Governor Hobbs. Go by county. Maricopa, 292,000. So how you can get an indication on what the general is going to look at like and how tough the general race is going to be. You can look at these by county numbers. Now, simply because those numbers are higher or lower does not mean that either candidate has an advantage or a disadvantage. What it means, it's part of that turnout that I've been talking about. 78% of the people in Arizona that are registered to vote did not turn out to vote. 78%. Okay, let's just do another one really quickly. Coconino. Okay. Andy Biggs, 6,000 or 6,100. Coconino County is Democrat. However, again, he had to share these votes. Now, hopefully, these Republican votes, we're looking at Coconino County. Hopefully, all those people, the 8,517 votes that came out of Coconino County, okay, that's what we'll probably get, unless it doubles for Andy in the general when we're talking about Coconino. But let's look at this one. Okay, we talked about 251. So Congressman Biggs, if everybody comes out to vote that came out for the primary, he should get 349,000 plus votes out of Maricopa. Because all those folks who voted for him in the primary should turn around and vote for him in the general. That's usually how it works. So that means your votes are going to double because you don't have to share those votes in the Republican primary again. Let's look at, again, where was I at? We'll look at Hobbs. Maricopa, we already talked about that. 292. That's just Democrats. That's not that 1.4 that's out there that we don't know, center right or center left, that she may get those votes from. We don't know. We don't know where they're at. Hey, keep it down. Sorry about that. So these numbers right here are pure Democrats. Okay. I told you what we looked at, and let me make sure you guys are getting this. Okay. Yeah, you're getting this. That's what we're talking about. Okay. So if you want to stay involved, you got to do your research. This is part of your research. If you are in a precinct, or a lot of PCs already know this. It's the folks that are not engaged that want their candidate to win, that are not engaged in this. And this will tell you how hard you have to work to get these folks elected. It's not, the primary in a lot of races, the primary is the big thing. Or it's one of the hurdles that you get over. When we're talking about in the LDs, if you live in a heavily Republican district, your primary is basically the fight that you've got to win. In LD7, it's a primary fight. I think we have a Democrat that's running, but we're talking 1-7. Don't quote me on that, but it's 1-7. 7 Republicans for every 1 Democrat. So the general election, come out and run and practice if you're a Democrat, and we'll see. But the Democrats usually have a tough time winning the general in the LD races, particularly in LD7. But in the general, like I said, the governor's race, it's a whole different story. It's a whole different story. Okay? We look at Hobbs's number, all 100% reported. This is what she got at the end of the day. Over 500,000 votes. just in the Democrats, over 500,000 votes. And so you remember when I told you about the numbers again, about that group of folks that are independents that are going to come out and that will probably vote, registered voters, 4.3, ballots cast, a little over 1 million, voter turnout, 25%. As I said, okay, we're expected to go up in the general again. But again, I want you to understand that number that, let me find it again. That number that is just hiding out there. 1.4 independents, 1.4 million, 38 or 30,000 libertarians, 46,000 no labels, Green Party, 5,000. So we are talking, and these are registered voters. We're talking, there is a huge slice of voters that are out there that will determine who gets that nod for governor. That's how it works, folks. That's why it's called doing your research. That's why it's called getting out the vote. That means knocking on doors. That means talking to your neighbor. That means giving your neighbor a ride to the polls if they don't have a ride. That means getting people involved. Because if we don't do that, if it's the same people out there knocking on doors and going to the parades and setting up booths and getting people registered to vote, if it's the same people, you know what's going to happen? They're going to get burnt out. They're going to get burnt out. And when they get burnt out, who's left? And then when we have 78% of the people that are not going out to vote anyway, and they're registered, that's a scary thing. So we talked about that a little bit. I want to go to the legislative races. I'm going to tell you the swing districts because a lot of folks will ask me, do we have a chance to hold the House seat? Are we going to be able to hold it? Okay. Let me make sure I got my screen up here. Are we going to be able to hold those seats? And sometimes I say, well, we're strong in the House. Okay, we're strong in the House. I hope that we can be that strong in the Senate. So let me bring up what I need to bring up, and it doesn't seem like I got it. Hold up. I always do this. I always lose the place where I am supposed to be, and it's crazy. It's because I don't have my glasses. That's what it is. I don't have my glasses on, so I can barely see. I left my glasses down in Phoenix when I was down there today. Now I can't find out who. I know there are people pinging in. But I can't find where I was at. Hold up. Let me check this out. Because I need to be able to bring up some of the questions that y'all were asking on this. So where you at? Excuse me for this. Give me a minute to try to find this. I hate that. That's what these Apple computers do sometimes. They don't, they're crazy with this. Okay, hold on. Let me, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to find where I was, and then I'll go back to sharing my screen with everyone. So let me do this for everybody. I know it's here somewhere. This is insane. This is insane that this is happening. So let me see. Here we go. Okay. There we go. There we go. Wow. That was crazy. That was crazy. Let me take this out. Okay, so let me go back to my screen when we were talking about uh, where you can find this stuff at for these folks that that you voted for. Okay, and we are almost done here. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to be able to just show you this really quickly because it is election season and it's important that we are following this and we understand uh, the importance of this. So again, if you can see, I hope you can see that we are in the legislative races. A lot of folks come to me and ask me, so Walt, how are we going to look in the House and the Senate at the state level? You know, again, I can't really tell about the House or the Senate side. However, we can talk about, the House. Again, 4.3 registered voters, cast at 1.5. We got a turnout, correction, 26%. Okay. So, for example, in these races like this, Senator Fincham and LD1, he was the only one that ran. Okay. 41,000 turnout. So that is that bump I was talking about. That's that bump that we'll see from the midterm general elections. So some of those independent voters that are center right, that are familiar and have the same ideology, okay, some of them will come out and vote where his numbers will be higher. Okay. And vice versa. So in LD1, they can get double. And in LD1, the senator is going to win because that's a red district. Let's get down to District 2. A lot of folks say, well, my district is the only thing important. No, it is not. All the districts are important. Now, Legislative District 2, which is Senator Bullock, she's a former House member. I want you to look at something. 71.4%. She had to share that. 77.4%. He had to share that. These numbers are really close. This is what's considered a swing district. That's what that is. It is a swing district. All their votes come out of Maricopa County. Okay, because LD2 is considered Maricopa County. Let's look at the spread. 11,500 total votes that were cast. 11,400 votes that were cast. This is a swing district. Now, what happens in a swing district? If we lose just this seat, the Senate is vulnerable of losing the Senate, the Republican-held Senate. So those folks that may be living in that area that haven't gotten out and vote and they're Republicans, they can decide whether or not we have a Republican or a Democrat in that Senate seat. Okay? Let's go down to the House. Okay? We'll go down to the House. Where are we at? A lot of these folks moved to the Senate, served with a lot of these people. Okay, state senator, a lot of senators up there. State senator. Okay, here we go. LD1. Okay, again, I told you it's red. Selena Bliss, 32% that came out. Quan Nguyen, 33%. That's a red district. Look at the numbers. They're pretty much close. You're going to get that. They're going to win this district. Okay. They'll win the district. Okay. LD2, House race. Only reason why Justin, our Representative Wilmeth, did not have a primary because No one wanted to run in that district. It's a tough district. But look at the numbers. Both at 100% in a swing district. The Democrat went home with 17,000 plus. Justin Wilmoth, who was a Republican, went home with 13,000. Let's look at the numbers. We look at the counties. In the Democrat race, look at these numbers. Oh, correction, my bad. Okay, my bad. Should be, okay, here we go. My bad. I was looking at, that's District 1. I'm sorry, District 1 at 17,000. Let's look at, there was no primary. Okay, there was no primary in two. Two candidates ran. Okay, Simachek, she's a new candidate. She won that primary. Okay, Justin Wilmoth walked away with 13,000, and Simachek walked away with 14,000. Good numbers. Okay, so in the House, they don't have a general in LD2, so we'll hold that seat. We don't have to worry about that seat unless no labels or someone gets written in to run in that. Okay, let me look at. Let's look at 7. Let's look at 7. Okay, so we had 4 people running: myself, Cook, Costanzo, and Engel. We look at the counties. We're a red district. Okay. Now, how you can tell how your candidate's going to do is based on the numbers that they picked up during the primary in their counties. Again, Coconino, Gila, Navajo, Pinal. So, for example, in Pinal, I walked away with 54, little over 5,400. Okay. So that 5,400 people who voted in the general will be split. I don't know. Sometimes it's split between the top 2 vote getters. Former Representative Cook walked away with 49. Costanzo, he had a good showing, walked away with 38. And Engel walked away with 39. But when we look at these total numbers, we're looking at the percentage. We're not looking at these 100%. We're looking at the percentage of these. Okay? That's what we're looking at. How well they did in these districts. The blue district, okay, we know that's in there. Now, here is the Democrat running in this district. Martin Samuel Sam. I never heard of this dude, but our person. So he walked away with 14,000 votes. A little over 14,000. Okay. Representative Cook has that already. So when I say a red district, that tells us this, okay, this guy is the only person running. He's not sharing votes. However, he's practicing running for office. Unless they have a higher turnout. It's coming from those center right or center left. Okay. So that's how you can kind of tell what districts are strong red or what districts are strong blue. Look at this one. This is a Democrat district. Okay. So we could, we got to be careful with this. And again, I'll get to your questions really quickly. Now, this is a Democrat district, LD8. Republican ran. I don't know this gentleman. Got 6,800, 6,000, or a little over 6,800 votes. Imagine, you can drill down. Imagine if just as 10% came out of that Republican district. 10% came out, say they were from that district, LD8, they came out to vote. Remember, 75% did not come out to vote. Registered Republicans did not come out to vote. Imagine his numbers would have been a little higher. Okay? So that's what I'm talking about when we can lose some of the seats. Okay? Now, this is a flippable seat. Some folks say, what do you mean flip it? We could flip this seat. Because look at this one right here. 8,000, 6,000. That's a total vote. We could actually pick up a seat. This is considered a flippable seat in our state. Look at it. This guy's sitting pretty solid with 12,000. He's sitting at 6, only one running. So guess what? That is a flippable seat. We could actually win this seat, have a split seat by this one right, and both of them actually, because that's the highest votes they got. Unless folks come out and do something different. This is a heavily Democrat seat. Okay? Same thing. And I can tell you who will be in this seat right here. We got this gentleman right here who, Bradley, he got a little over 10,000. Austin, Representative Austin, got 11,000. And Martinez got 11,000. Let's look at the vote counts. Okay. 10,000. Representative Austin, 11,000. 20,000 total. That number will go up from center left. So that will go up. She'll get more votes. Where's she at? She'll get more votes. Okay. But will Republicans turn out? Look how close these numbers are, folks. That's a flippable seat. So, I could go on and on about this, and I'm not going to do that because I think you get the point. I think you get the point of where this is at and what we got to do. Okay. Again, you can look for yourself. All you got to do is go to www.azsos.gov. Okay. Let me show you. Some of you all may not. Let me just share this with you really quickly, and then I think it's about time to get out of here. I think it's almost time to get out. Okay. Let me share this with you really quickly. So all you have to do is when you get to this website, Secretary of State's website, you go on here and you can monitor this. It's real easy to do. All you do, again, you go to that website, azsos.gov, and you click elections and you go, you can scroll down here, you can see these things. And please forgive me if I don't want to insult somebody's intelligence, because I'm sure a lot of folks already know this, but some folks don't know. So you go down here, you click on one of these right here. If you want to look at the election information, you just click on that. Or if you want to look at the unofficial 2026 primary election results, you click on that. Once you click on that, you go to the same page that I was talking about. It's too easy. It's too easy. Okay. So we got a lot to do, folks. We have a lot to do. We have a lot to do. And If we're not doing that, if we're not doing our due diligence, guess what's going to happen? We're going to get what we get. So let's go into questions really quickly, because I don't want to take up a lot of your time. We talked about a lot tonight. We talked about a lot tonight. Tomorrow, a lot of candidates kind of taking the day off, I guess, and then they get back to work. Wherever you're at, go to that website and look at what's going on in your district. We already know what's going on at the state level and the executive level. We already know who we want to be in the executive. I told you the process on how the governors pick their running mates. They can do it either way, or they can do it like how they do it at the national level. We'll soon see who is on the ticket. What these nominees? Okay, we'll soon see. And they don't necessarily have to be in office already. It could be someone who is not in office. Sometimes that's better because they don't have any baggage that they are bringing to. You're welcome. They don't have any baggage that they're bringing to the ticket. Sometimes that's better, in my opinion. Okay. Go to that website. Look at those pages, and it's not genius math. And when you see Democrats that are running unopposed, that is not by accident. They are not doing that because somebody else doesn't want to run. They are doing that because it's strategic, because they want to maximize the number of votes that they get. And then again, you are going to find their numbers climb. I also showed you about the split districts when we're talking Republican-held districts and some Democrat districts. And those split seats will determine if we keep the House or the Senate. So those folks who live in those districts, 2, and I think it was 13 or 8, those folks who live in those districts, you're Republican, you saw that if we had about 10% more that came out in that one district, if it was the general, that person that's a Republican could possibly win that seat, or vice versa. Numbers don't lie. That's why I always say, do your research. Don't get your answers from Facebook. Don't even get them from me. What you do is you get on your computer or whatever you got, you pull it up, you do the research, you get your own information, and then you move out and draw fire. And in the military, that is, you go about your business and you take care of your business. And if we're not doing that, if we're not doing our due diligence, if we're not looking at the numbers, then guess what's going to happen? What do I always say? You get what you got, and you got what you deserve. Now, we've got a lot of followers that my following is starting to pick up because I'm doing this routinely now. And we are getting followers from all over the state. And in some cases, folks came down from other, like Utah and other places. Some of them follow me up in Utah. So that means the word is getting out. That's why I need folks who are on this. Please like, follow, and share. Like, follow, and share, because I'm not going to tell you a bunch of BS. I'm not going to tell you a bunch of BS. I think we're kind of over. We're kind of over. So I need to time off of here. However, I will be on tomorrow. I will be on tomorrow, same bat channel, same bat time, 7:30 to 8:30. We'll talk about some other things. Didn't really get too much into some of the questions and answers. I want to give a shout out to my good buddy here, Stephen. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. A great, great American. Love what you do. And I appreciate your prayers to our family and appreciate the work that you do for the state. and you are a stand-up guy. So again, tomorrow, if you want to log on, all you need to do is you can click on that stream, you can click on that button, and it'll bring you up. You can also, if you want to call in, all you need to do is dial 435-383-8118. You can do that, and that is a number you can dial in on. And if you want to go to the website or go to my Facebook or go to my LinkedIn or YouTube or X, you can do that, and you can find this show there. Again, like, follow, and share. Like, follow, and share. I need folks to be able to do that, particularly now in this and where we're at. Okay. As a legislator for LD7, I like to get information out because a lot of times my district is so big, it's hard to get information out. And I like to get it out. Okay. Everybody, please have a great and wonderful weekend. If you're in the area, Snowflake Taylor area, we are having Pioneer Days. Today was the first day. Tomorrow is the parade. I'll be in the parade. And tomorrow night is the rodeo. Also, if you want to go buy some gifts or you want to support local small businesses, I encourage you to go buy some of the great and wonderful gifts that they have out there. You can get some great food. You can watch the rodeo, and you can get out of the heat if you are in Phoenix or some other hot place. Remember, everybody, do your part. Take care, everybody. This is Walt Blackman, and I